Where roads become racetracks and every corner flirts with death, the Isle of Man TT awaits the fearless. In this video, we uncover the adrenaline-fueled world of the Isle of Man TT, the fastest and deadliest motorcycle race on Earth. Since 1907, riders have pushed their limits on the 37-mile Schneefel mountain course, tearing through villages, countryside, and mountains at over 200 miles per hour. More than just a race, it's a century-old tradition of speed, courage, and danger, where legends are made and every corner could be their last. Let's start it with a fact. The very first Isle of Man TT took place on May 28, 1907. Back then, Charles Collier won the single-cylinder race on a matchless bike, averaging just 38 miles per hour. Fast forward to today, and riders are hitting speeds of over 200 miles per hour on the very same course. That's how the Isle of Man TT became the fastest and deadliest race on Earth. Before we dive deeper into this adrenaline-fueled story, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more epic motorsport breakdowns. Now buckle up, because what you're about to see isn't just a race. It's the ultimate battle of speed, danger, and human courage on the Isle of Man TT. Let's talk about its history, because the Isle of Man TT wasn't born overnight. It grew out of daring experiments in speed and endurance. Motor racing first came to the Isle of Man in 1904, when the island allowed car races at a time when the UK had strict 20 miles per hour limits. Without that bold decision, there would have been no TT at all. The Gordon Bennett trials of 1904 and 1905 proved that the island's twisting roads were perfect for high-speed competition, but the motorcycles of the time struggled with the steep mountain climbs. Therefore, organizers carved out shorter courses to test two-wheeled machines. By 1907, a new chapter began, the very first tourist trophy for motorcycles. Held on May 28th, Charles Collier claimed victory in the single-cylinder class at just 38 miles per hour, while Rem Fowler took the twin-cylinder race. Only half the riders finished, yet that struggle defined the TT, brutal, unforgiving, and heroic. If the riders had known how iconic it would become, perhaps they would have realized they were racing into history. As years passed, speeds increased and innovations reshaped the machines. But higher speeds also meant higher risks. And in 1911, the TT moved to the now legendary Schneefel mountain course. 37 miles of danger across villages, countryside, and peaks. American Indians dominated early years. British manufacturers fought back, and by the 1920s, the TT was an international spectacle. Yet tragedy was never far away. If roads had remained open during practice forever, the TT might not have survived. But the 1927 death of Archie Birkin forced organizers to close roads, forever changing the event's safety standards. Therefore, from its shaky beginnings to global fame, the Isle of Man TT's history is not just about racing, it's about courage, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of speed. Now that we've explored its history, let's shift gears and see how the Isle of Man TT actually works today. Because this event isn't just about speed, it's about structure, precision, and survival. If you thought the Isle of Man TT was just another motorcycle race, think again, because what happens on this island is unlike anything else on Earth. The TT doesn't simply happen in a day. It begins on the spring bank holiday in late May and stretches over 13 electrifying days into June. The first 5 days aren't for winning trophies, they're for qualifying week, where riders tear through practice laps, learning every corner of the treacherous 37.73-mile course. But if the island's infamous weather turns, contingency rest days are built in, because at the TT, nature always has the final say. If you dream of racing here, courage alone isn't enough. To even be considered, you must hold a national or international license and prove your worth in competitive road races. Therefore, many hopefuls start with the Manx Grand Prix, an amateur proving ground, before stepping into the TT spotlight. Even then, newcomers are capped at 15 per race, and grid priority favors past champions and the fastest laps. Just making it to the start line is already a badge of honor. Qualifying isn't casual, it's survival. Riders in superbikes, superstocks, and supersports often share sessions, while sidecars run separately. If you want to race, you must clock within 112% of the third fastest lap. Miss that mark, and your TT dream ends before it begins. Race week is when legends are born. Competitors launch one by one, 10 seconds apart, locked in a time trial war against the clock. But as speeds soar past 200 miles per hour, riders inevitably clash, overtake spark, and the island streets become a stage for pure chaos. And if speed alone could crown a champion, the TT would be simple, but strategy is king. Bikes need fuel every 2 laps, pit crews scramble, visors are wiped and tires swapped. Therefore, in under a minute, a race can be saved or lost forever. If you think all TT bikes are the same, think again. The event is split into distinct classes, each with its own flavor of speed and danger. Race classes at the Isle of Man. TT. The Superbike TT is the headline act, featuring 1,000cc monsters pushing over 250 horsepower, machines so powerful they blur reality itself. But not every race is about raw power. The Supersport TT offers lighter, more restricted bikes, closer to what you might see on the road, yet still capable of hitting extreme speeds. If regulations tighten even further, you get the Superstock TT, where bikes run closer to showroom condition, tested on treaded tires. The Super Twin TT, a newer class, balances agility and performance with 600 to 700cc machines built for close, dramatic racing. And then there's the legendary Sidecar TT, where riders and passengers defy gravity together, proving that at the TT, teamwork can be just as dangerous as solo glory. Now let's move on to something equally fascinating: the Guardians and Gateways of the Isle of Man TT, official vehicles and marshals. If you think the action stops when the racing ends, you'd be wrong. Once a session finishes, an official vehicle carrying the sign "Roads Open" makes its way around the mountain course, reopening the island to everyday life. But during the races, it's the traveling marshals who become the unsung heroes. If an accident happens, and it often does, these first aid trained riders, once racers themselves, are the first on scene. Until 2024, they thundered across the island on Honda Fireblades. But from 2025, BMW's S1000R, R and M1000RR lead the charge. Course crossings. Now imagine being stuck on one side of the course during a race. Thanks to the 1982 Road Racing Act, vehicles and pedestrians can cross, but only at controlled points, often via permanent pedestrian bridges or supervised junctions. TT Access Road. And if you thought the island completely shuts down, think again. A hidden access road, once part of a railway line, runs beneath the circuit, allowing cars and light vans to slip through, even as bikes scream past above. Without it, daily life on the Isle of Man would grind to a halt. Now that we've seen the glory of the Isle of Man TT, it's time to face its darker truth, because this race is as famous for its danger as it is for its speed. Since its very first event in 1907, the Isle of Man TT has carried a chilling reputation. Between 1907 and 2023, a staggering 156 riders lost their lives during official practices or races on the Sneefel mountain course. And if you include tragedies from the Manx Grand Prix and the Old Clubman TT races of the 1940s and 1950s, the total rises to 269 fatalities. But the danger hasn't faded with time. It has grown. In 2016 alone, 5 riders were killed during official practices and races, a stark reminder that even modern safety improvements can't tame the mountain course. Therefore, it's no surprise that some years are remembered not for triumph, but for tragedy. Both 1970 and 2022 stand as the deadliest years in TT history, each claiming 6 competitors' lives in a single event. The TT is celebrated for pushing human and machine beyond their limits. But this very pursuit of speed is what makes it the most controversial race on Earth. While danger is expected at the Isle of Man TT, sometimes the most shocking moments don't come from racing itself, but from the systems designed to keep it safe. On the 30th of May 2018, experienced TT rider Steve Mercer was left fighting for his life after a devastating head-on collision with an official course car at Balakry. The vehicle, being driven at high speed, was rushing police officers to the scene of a fatal crash involving rider Dan Neen. But Mercer, along with 6 other competitors, had been halted mid-course and instructed by marshals to return to the paddock, in the reverse direction of the track. The result was catastrophic. Mercer was unconscious for 5 days and spent 5 months in hospital with multiple severe injuries. Therefore, organizers immediately revised their safety protocols, ruling that any riders turned back after a red flag must now be escorted front and rear by motorcycle-mounted traveling marshals. But controversy deepened when the Autocycle Union, ACU, and the Isle of Man Department for Enterprise refused to publish the results of the independent inquiry, citing confidentiality. The ACU admitted liability but insisted any compensation claims be filed under Isle of Man jurisdiction, leaving Mercer dependent on insurance payouts. The aftermath rippled into the following year. In 2019, the driver of the course car resigned after further criticism for exceeding new speed limits, and TT leadership faced mounting scrutiny. Therefore, the incident not only scarred a rider's life, but also exposed deep cracks in the event's safety management. If numbers could tell stories, then the Isle of Man TT's record book would be a saga of speed, courage, and rivalry. When we speak of champions, one name echoes louder than the rest: Michael Dunlop. With 33 victories, he has surpassed legends to claim the top spot in the all-time winners list. Yet the shadow of his uncle, Joey Dunlop, still looms large, his 26 wins immortalized as a benchmark once thought unbeatable. The TT is more than a race. It is a legacy, a dynasty of speed that passes from one generation to the next. Following close behind is England's John McGuinness, with 23 wins etched into history, while Isle of Man's own Dave Molyneux dominates the sidecar world with 17 triumphs. Riders like Ian Hutchinson and Peter Hickman, with 16 and 14 wins respectively, ensure that each decade brings fresh heroes to the Hall of Fame. But what are victories without lap records that push the impossible? In 2023, Peter Hickman rewrote the limits with a blistering 16 minutes, 36.114 seconds lap at an average of 136.358 miles per hour on his BMW M1000RR. Yet Michael Dunlop's mastery spans categories: superbike, supersport, super twin, proving that versatility itself could be a trophy with his name engraved upon it. From his 130 miles per hour supersport laps to his 2025 super twin record, Dunlop's speed seems boundless. And if single laps inspire awe, then race records reveal true endurance and nerve. Hickman's 2018 Senior TT averaged 131.7 miles per hour, and his 2023 Superstock TT smashed barriers at 133.676 miles per hour. Dunlop, too, remains a titan, clocking an astonishing 131.832 miles per hour over 6 laps in the 2023 Superbike TT. Even sidecars continue the legacy. The Birchall's 2023 record was later challenged by the Crows in 2025, racing their Honda LCR at over 121 miles per hour average. But what if it's your first TT? Can a newcomer rise to the heights of these legends? Absolutely. In 2022, Glenn Irwin stunned the paddock with a 129.850 miles per hour debut lap, the fastest ever by a newcomer. Before him, Hickman's 2014 debut at 129.1 miles per hour set the gold standard. At the TT, new names can rise as swiftly as veterans. Beyond speed and records, the TT also celebrates courage. The Susan Genis Trophy, honoring the most meritorious female competitor, has highlighted riders like Jenny Tinmouth, Maria Costello, and Estelle LeBlanc, reminding us that bravery comes in many forms. Though silent since 2019, the award waits for the next champion to carry it forward. In the end, the Isle of Man TT is far more than a race. It is a living archive of victories, lap times, courage, and resilience. Speed writes the first chapter, but legacy, perseverance, and human spirit complete the story. And if the roar of engines on the mountain course has ever captivated your imagination, then perhaps the digital world has brought it even closer to home. The Isle of Man TT has raced off the track and into video games. Manx TT Superbike, the 1995 Sega arcade classic, was the first to capture the thrill, later ported to the Sega Saturn in 1997. Since then, games like Suzuki TT Superbikes 2005, TT Superbikes Real Road Racing Championship, and TT Superbikes Legends, both 2008, have put players in the saddle, all developed for the PlayStation 2 by Gesture Interactive. Big Ben Interactive revived the TT license for a modern audience, releasing TT Isle of Man, Ride on the Edge in 2018, followed by sequels in 2020 and 2023. The mountain course has never looked or felt, and the excitement isn't just on screens. In Ramsey, the Ramsey Sprint has thrilled fans since 1978, running along the 1-kilometer Mora Promenade. If the bikes aren't enough, the music festival Sprint Fest hits the same town between practice and race week, mixing engines with beats and turning the streets into a festival of speed and sound. And as the engines quiet and the crowds disperse, the story of the TT leaves a lasting echo. From the legends who carved their names into history to newcomers daring to chase the impossible, the Isle of Man TT is more than a race. It is a testament to courage, speed, and unyielding human spirit. Every lap, every sprint, every roar of the engine tells a story that will live on forever. If this journey through speed and legacy fired you up, don't just watch, join the ride. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, ring the bell, drop your thoughts in the comments, and share this adrenaline-fueled story with everyone who loves the thrill of the TT.